Ever stop to think about what a piece of land, the data on your phone, and the code for an AI might have in common? Well, in Islamic law, there's this incredible blueprint for wealth called al-Māl, and it connects them all. Today, we're going to unpack this ancient framework and see just how relevant it is for our world right now. So here's our game plan. We'll start with why wealth is so fundamental. Then we'll get into what al-Māl actually is. After that, we'll break down the different property types, connect it all to modern tech, and then we'll finish up with a little quiz to see what stuck. Let's jump in. Okay, first things first. Why all the focus on property? I mean, what makes this concept a pillar of society in Islamic tradition? So let's start with a little thought experiment. You've got your car, you've got the data on your phone, and you've got this amazing idea for a new company. They seem like completely different things, don't they? Well, from an Islamic legal perspective, they're all linked as different forms of property or wealth. And this is really the core of it. Property, or al-Māl, isn't just about cash or things you own. It's the very bedrock of our economic lives. Its protection, known as ḥifẓ al-Māl, is considered so critical that it's one of the 5 highest objectives of the Sharīʿah. We're talking right up there with protecting life itself, faith, and family. This one idea shapes everything from contracts to business ethics, and as you'll see, it's flexible enough to handle things like patents and digital currencies. Okay, so we know it's a big deal, but what is property, really? What actually counts as al-Māl? You know, the definition is surprisingly practical. For something to be considered al-Māl, it really just has to pass 3 simple tests. Can you possess it? Can you secure it or store it? And does it have a beneficial use that people recognize? This simple rule is why things we can't really control, like sunlight or the air we breathe, don't count. And it's also why abstract ideas like your honor or your intelligence aren't property, because you can't exactly bottle them up and sell them. Now, here's where we get into a fascinating scholarly debate. The majority of jurists basically said that property is anything with a permissible financial value, whether it's a physical object or not. But the Hanafi school of thought was a bit stricter. Initially, they said property has to be something tangible, something you can physically hold and store. So for them, a right or a benefit wasn't property on its own, though they made exceptions for things like leases because, well, that's just how people did business. So, now that we have a definition, let's dive into the nitty-gritty of the blueprint. We'll start with how property is classified based on its legal status and value. The first and maybe most important split is between what's considered valuable and non-valuable. Valuable property, or mutaqawwim, is anything the Shari'ah permits you to own and benefit from. Think halal food, currency, things like that. On the flip side, non-valuable property, or ghayr mutaqawwim, is something prohibited, like pork or alcohol from Muslim. And listen, this isn't just some moral guideline. It has massive legal consequences. For any contract, a sale, a gift, anything, to be legally valid, the item involved has to be classified as valuable. Any contract to sell something non-valuable is just completely void from the get-go. The logic is simple, right? If the law forbids you from using something, it's definitely going to forbid you from selling it. All right, next up is a category you've probably heard of in other legal systems: movable versus immovable property. It's pretty straightforward. Movable property is anything you can, well, move without changing what it is: a car, a book, even money. Immovable property is land and anything stuck to it, like a house. And again, this isn't just abstract legal theory. This simple distinction impacts real-life rights, like a partner's right to buy out a share of land. It affects how things are handled in a bankruptcy case, and it creates special protections for a minor's inheritance, especially when it comes to property like land or a house. Okay, let's move on to the next set of classifications. These are all about how we use and trade different kinds of assets. So here we have a split between similar and dissimilar property. Think of similar or mithli property as stuff that's standardized. 1 kilo of sugar is pretty much like any other. Same with a barrel of a certain grade of oil. But dissimilar or kimi property is unique. There's no perfect substitute for a specific painting, a one-of-a-kind antique, or even a used car with its own specific mileage and history. This might seem like a small detail, but it is absolutely crucial for 2 reasons. First, compensation. If you destroy someone's bag of flour, you replace it with another bag of flour. But if you destroy their unique antique vase, you have to pay its monetary value. But here's the big one, especially for Islamic finance. This is a cornerstone for the rules against usury, or riba. When you trade certain similar goods, like gold for gold, it has to be the exact same amount, exchanged on the spot. No delays, no extras. And our last classical distinction is between usable and perishable property.
A usable asset, or istimali, is something that gives you a benefit without being destroyed in the process. Think of a house you rent or a car you drive. A perishable asset, or istihlaki, is gone after its first use, like food you eat, fuel you burn, and, most importantly, money you spend. And this one simple idea leads us directly to a core principle of Islamic finance. You can't rent something that gets used up, right? You can't rent an apple, eat it, and then give it back. But you can get a loan for an apple and replace it with another one. Money is treated the same way. It's perishable. So you can get a loan, but charging a guaranteed extra amount on that loan is considered riba. This is the whole reason you can rent a house, but you can't rent money. So that's the classical framework. But how does this ancient blueprint hold up in the 21st century with things like artificial intelligence and crypto? Let's find out. So does the system still work? Absolutely. Modern ideas like intellectual property, patents, copyrights, trademarks are now widely recognized as a type of property called mal manawi, or intangible property. And the justification for protecting it comes right back to those core principles, recognizing social customs, rewarding people's effort, and fulfilling the higher objective of projecting both wealth and intellect. And this isn't just history. Scholars right now are using these exact same principles to figure out where things like cryptocurrencies and NFTs fit into the picture. Whew, we have covered a ton of ground. But now it's your turn. Time to see if you've mastered the blueprint with a few quick questions. Ready? Question number 1. What classification applies to land in Islamic property law? Is it A, movable property, B, immovable property, C, homogeneous property, or D, perishable property? Okay, question 2. Which of the following is an example of valuable or mutakawim property? Is it A, pork, B, gold, C, wine, or D, birds in the sky? And our final question, number 3. What term covers rights like patents and copyrights, which are now widely accepted as a form of protected property? Is that A, tangible property, B, intellectual property, C, perishable property, or D, homogeneous property? So, how did you do? Go ahead and drop your answers for all 3 questions down in the comments below. We'd love to see what you think and keep the conversation going. Thanks so much for tuning in.